Hello, friends. Welcome to Level Up with Debbie Neal. I am your host. There is nowhere I would rather be than right here, right now with you. This podcast is all about leveling up in all aspects of our lives. Thank you for being here. I am so grateful. I'm excited to be on this journey with you. Together, we are leveling up. You ready? Hello, my Level Up family. I hope you're all amazing today. We are going to talk about a topic today about decision making, because here's the thing. Leaders make decisions, and we haven't talked about this topic before, and I'm pretty pumped about it. So today we're going to talk about decision making and why it's so important as you grow your leadership. So one of the things we've said over and over again is leadership is leading. So leaders, it is a necessity that leaders need to lead. But here's the reality. Many don't. Many don't. Decision making is a huge part of this process. And most people avoid making decisions because here's the thing. Decisions have consequences. They have consequences. And most people fear what those consequences are going to be like. Average will not make a decision, and they will actually allow the situation or the circumstance to make the decision for them. I really want you to think about that. Like, really think about that. This way, they avoid being blamed. So they don't make the decision because they don't want to be blamed. I mean, how many times have you heard, like, leaders, you just need to stand in it. You need to make a decision and stand in it. Leadership isn't about leading in the good. One of the greatest leadership qualities is to lead and be able to make choices quickly and confidently. It's about leading all of the time. In order to lead in business, it also applies to making decisions in your personal life. And so I remember when I was thinking about this, I'm like, let me really think about it. That, like, what if decisions look like in my life? Like, I consider myself a leader. I'm definitely a work in progress. Okay. But when I was thinking back in my life, I have I've been quick at making decisions, which is a leadership quality. I always say, like, I'm a yes or I'm a hell no. There's not much of a gray area for me. And if you're an overthinker, what happens when we're an overthinker, a lot of times that leads to procrastination. Like, we're just avoiding making the decision. And that could also lead to regret. If we sit on a decision too long, we miss an opportunity. And I'm going to share a few stories in my own personal life, because I went back. First of all, I love stories. And number two, I just went back to, like, reflecting. And I'm like, what big decision? Like, I'm not talking about, do you want Chinese or Italian? Which honestly does play into it. It all depends on what mood I'm in, but I'm pretty quick on what I want. But I went back into my personal life, just kind of thinking of, like, how am I with making big decisions? Did I make them quickly? Did I advance in time? So I'm going to bring you back a story to the first house that I bought. I was married at the time. So I was married for about a year. Yeah, a year. We were saving money. We were living in an apartment. And we're like, all right, it's time to go look at houses. Now, I went looking at a house. I happened to have fallen in love with my first house. So my husband at the time worked in the financial world. He was at work. I went with the realtor. And it's so funny because our budget, I don't want to age myself, but our budget back then was 160 to 170,000. Like, I don't even know what you're going to buy at that point. So that was going back to 1996. And we're like, that's our budget. That's what we feel comfortable with. I think we had $50,000 to put down on a house, and that's what we feel good with. Well, long story short, I fell in love with a house that was listed at 232. So it was above our budget. And when I see something that I like, I'm like, I've got to have this house. I have got to have this house. And so it ended up getting into a bidding war, and I went to 240. And it was back in the day, you can write like a check for like $100 to, like, reserve. I forgot what it was called, a binder. I think it was called a binder. Anyway, so all this is going on. I'm not with my husband. He's at work. And I'm like, I saw a house. You're going to love it. I put a bid in. He's like, all right, what was the house listed for? I'm like, 232. He's like, okay. What was the offer? I'm like, 240. He's like, let me explain to you the way this works. Number one, our budget was 160, 170. Number two, you're supposed to bid lower. I'm like, oh no. The housing market's through the roof. You're going to love this house. Long story short, we bought that house. We got the house. We lived in it for 3 years. We made great money on the house. And I didn't even I mean, he kind of went along with the ride at this point because he's probably thinking I'm crazy. But it was like in my gut. You ever go with that gut? Like I knew it was a great decision. I will tell you, a lot of my friends that bought houses, maybe like 160, 170, they had to redo the bathrooms, they had to redo the kitchen. This wasn't a new house, but everything in it was like new kitchens, new baths, somebody redid it. So it actually ended up being an outstanding investment. So we lived there. So it made that decision very quickly, very swiftly, was an amazing decision. Didn't overthink it. Something like, again, you overthink it. I was going to lose that house. Somebody else was going to get that house. Second house story. So it was about like, we lived there 3 years. The housing market was amazing. I'm like, maybe it's time we sell. Like we had one baby. We wanted to get pregnant with our second baby. Maybe it's time that we sell this house. We go and look. So he was like, all right, when do you want to look? I'm like, all right, I already made appointments. We're going today. So long story short, fell in love with a house, wrote a check, bought the house. And, sometimes people be like, you make decisions fly by night. The whole point of this is quick decisions. I'm not saying it's always the right thing, but I am saying it is a leadership quality. There are people like, oh, I like that house. I didn't put in an offer. What if there's something else? Again, it leads to a missed opportunity. Bought that house, lived in it 6 years, ended up being an amazing investment, an amazing investment. Then I made another decision. Wasn't the best decision, but made it quickly. Then we were getting ready to sell that house. And I'm like, oh, I want to move back closer to my parents. Long story short, there was a house listed for $750. I was left unattended. I wanted that house. Got into a bidding war. Got the house up to $950. I'm paying $950 for this house, only to tear it down, and then have what do they call the thing? An architect design one and rebuild the house that's going to be over $1 million. So we went and did that, and I made that decision. He backed me on that decision. But as we were like getting prices of what this new house was going to cost, I'm like, I don't know if this makes so much sense. So if you guys have ever bought a house, they already had $100,000 of my money, which they actually kept for a few years. That ended up not being a great decision, but it was a quick decision. And leaders make decisions. Then my New Jersey house that I live in now, I came to see a friend for a barbecue. In fact, I used to babysit her child. If you guys know my story, there was 5 years I was out of corporate America. I was watching 7 kids under the age of 5. Her child was one of them. We became really, really good friends. She got relocated with Johnson and Johnson. I'm now, building my business. I came to visit her one day and she's like, now she's in New Jersey. That's where my house is. I live next door and I'm still living in Long Island. And she's like, why don't you bring a checkbook? You're going to love it here. I'm like, a checkbook? Like, I don't know if I'm going to buy a house. And she's like, but what if? I was like, you're right. What if? Let me put my checkbook in my bag. Long story short, I went to the model, fell in love with the model house. And literally they said, oh, you could write a check for $5,000. You have 10 days to change your mind. And I was like, then I'll write a check for $5,000. And I have 10 days to change my mind. Long story short, I never changed my mind. And I share, though, those are my house stories. Although my Florida house, my Palm Beach house that I did sell, and that ended up being a great investment. I went down to Florida to visit and bought a house. All of my houses that I have bought was like, wake up, plug in my coffee. I think I'm going to look, found the house, bought the house. Make decisions. I remember, so I have 4 children. You guys might not know this about me, but I see you're hearing stories about decisions, but you're getting to know me a little bit better, right? So I don't know if that was on your top priority list, but that's what you're getting today. I have 4 children. All of my children, you might not know this about me, a little bit, maybe a little bit TMI, but all of my children are fertility children. All of them I had to have with modern science, with the help of doctors, with the help of God. And because I was actually told at a very young age that I would never be able to have children. So again, work on that mindset because I was like, I decided not to believe that story. So long story short, I had Brooke and Tyler. And the doctor told me, in my mind, we were done. And the doctor said, like, if you want to have any children, it's kind of now or never. You're going to miss your window. And we need to, you need to have a hysterectomy. You need to you need to like move on with your life. And I was like, oh, all right. I guess we'll try one more time. And my husband at the time looked at me like, you've lost your mind. Like we were done with 2. I'm like, I don't know. My gut is saying we're not. That's my gut. It's my gut. And I'm like, we'll just try once or twice. And if it doesn't work, then at least I know. But long story short, I have Bailey and Ryan. It was just one more try and I have Bailey and Ryan. And I really think like, what if I would have thought on that decision? Like he said, you have a really small window. Now, look, I'd never know what I wouldn't know if I didn't have them. But immediately I went with my gut. I immediately went with my gut. And that's what I want you to learn as you're listening to this podcast is sometimes you have to go with your gut because when you procrastinate and when you put things off, gosh, we have one life and no dress rehearsal. I think about my business. I was introduced to my business. I was very excited when I first heard it, but I will tell you what happened on the way home. What if this doesn't work? Who do I know? I've never sold a thing in my life. I don't know who will join me. I don't all these stories that don't serve me. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes because there's this feeling inside of me that's saying, what if that woman's right? There's that feeling inside of me. There's two types of opportunities, the ones that are seized, the ones that are missed. People wait for the right time. It was never going to be the right time. At the time when I was introduced to my business, I had a 6-year-old, I had a 4-year-old, my twins were 1.5. I was watching 7 kids under the age of 5. I really didn't have the extra money. I didn't have the extra time. I was married at the time. My husband was working all the time. It was not the right time to start a business, but I wanted more out of my life. So I went with my gut and I started a business. I made a decision boldly, strongly, and quickly. Okay. And you know what? Maybe it would have been there in 6 months. Maybe it would have been there in a year. Clearly it is. I'm building it 18 years. The opportunity is still there. But I made the decision quickly. I also made the decision quickly that I was going to build this and I was going to build it to the top and beyond. I made that decision and I have stood in that decision for 18 years. And I'm not sharing any of this to impress you. Like say, oh, look at me. I'm sharing some of my stories that are letting you know how decision processes. And you could go talk to top leaders, probably in any single profession. They're going to tell you the same things. Leaders make decisions quickly with courage and they're not going to overthink things. Okay. So when I made that decision to build to the top, let me tell you something. The decision is the easy part. There was a lot of obstacles. There was a lot of no-shows. There was a lot of heartache. There was a lot of attrition. There was a lot of forks in the road. There was a lot of things that brought me to my knees. I made the decision and I have stood in it for 18 years and I will stand in it for the rest of my life. I'm going to tell you another story. It has to do with 2 of my leaders. I wasn't there. But a leader that was in my business went to another leader's house and she was doing her a favor and she was going to do like a training for her team. And she walked in and she knew exactly what she had to do. She was there on a mission. And so Wendy said to her, would you like a drink? Can I get you anything? And so many times was like, oh no, I'm okay, or whatever you have. She looked at her very boldly and said, I'd love water, no ice. Thank you. But the way she answered gave Wendy's like, that's exactly why she is where she is. She knows exactly what she wants. She says it boldly. She says it clearly. And she came here to do a job and then she's going to go home. So let's really talk about the importance of decision making. So I just wanted to share, like when I was reflecting on this, putting down some notes for my podcast, I was like, well, what decisions have I made pretty boldly and pretty quickly in life? And honestly, when I think about those, they were all really significant decisions, really, really significant decisions. So when you're thinking about the importance of decision making, you're blazing a trail. If you take forever to decide, you're going to attract people in your life that also take forever to decide. Okay. As you grow your ability to make decisions, you're growing your ability to pivot. See, here's the thing about life and business. Change is inevitable. It's inevitable. Things will happen in business and leaders lead. We don't shy away from adversity. We make decisions to lead with vision, even if we're nervous, even if we're uncomfortable. Again, going back to what we said at the beginning, most wait for the situation to make the decision for them. If you want to be different, you're here to level up. We make a decision and cast a vision of confidence to our team and we execute. The level of your decision, communication, and execution is up to you. Decision making is a skill. It's a combination of your gut instinct and your mind. Your decision process has the ability to elevate your team's success, but it also has the ability to hold your team back. And so this is why my anniversary of starting my business is so important to me, because my decision to not only start, but my decision to see this through and go full out didn't just impact me. And every year that blows my mind more and more. What if I allowed myself to overthink? What if I slowed down? What if I arrived? What if I allowed doubt and fear to stop me? What if I got discouraged with adversity? Our decisions have a ripple effect. Making strong, quick decisions impacts your team, and it also impacts your future team. It impacts goal setting. It impacts choosing a goal. It impacts sticking to a goal. It impacts pursuing a goal with excellence. It impacts changing the plan if needed and keeping the goal. Like, I could remember when I was leading my team to the top of my company, I had a plan, right? These were the number of sales. I had everything lined out, how it was going to happen, a breakdown. And let me tell you something. It did not happen that way. It did not happen that way. And by the 5th of the month, the 10th of the month, I was constantly changing the plan. Constantly. The goal remained the same, but the plan constantly changed. So I was making decisions on how to change the plan constantly. As you grow your ability to make decision, it's going to grow your conflict resolution. Things will come up. Making decisions quickly is essential, right? Like, I can remember there was one time that a top leader in my business left. It's going to happen. And then, so she was the leader in my business, but also obviously led a team. And I could remember calling up one of the leaders in that team. I go, we're going to get everybody in a room. I'm going to share the facts. I'm going to let them know what happened. I'm going to cast the vision of where we're going, and we're going to ease their minds, and we're going to lead this ship. And her initial reaction was like, wait, I feel like maybe if we don't tell people, they might not even notice. I'm like, no, I need you to trust my gut on this. Clear is kind. We need to communicate. We need to execute. We need to cast the vision. That was a leadership decision. It might not have been the right one, but it turned out to be the right one, because when you're we delivered the facts. It is what it is. We're here. We're leading. We're going. We haven't seen anything yet. Follow us, join us, because this is where this team is going. Decision making is important for motivating your team. Your decisions impact how your team perceives business. Decision making increases productivity and it increases performance. And you know what it does? It helps you manage risks. Your decisions help your team adapt to change. Change is the only constant. Business is constantly changing. Leaders foresee changes that need to be made. They communicate them with vision and they communicate them with strength. They come up with solutions. And when leaders know the value and the importance of making decisions and commits to growing it, it has the ability to just improve teamwork. So decision making is huge. So I'm going to ask you this, like, what decision right now in your life are you sitting on? Is it moving your business forward? Is it buying a house? Is it proposing to that person? Is it asking that person out? Is it starting a business? Is it going all in on your business? Is it booking that trip? Know what you want. Know what you want. Take steps. Take charge of your life. Make powerful decisions. And then when you make them, stand in them. Because leveling up requires you to grow your decision-making skills. Leaders are not wishy-washy. They're clear. And here's a quote that I want to leave you with, okay? Always go with the choice that scares you the most, because that is the one that will help you grow. That's the one that will help you grow. I grew into my homes. I grew into my business. I grew into the leader that could lead my team to the top and beyond. All of them were scary decisions, but they forced me to level up. They helped me grow. We are here to level up, and growing your decision-making process is a huge part of it. Love you, friends.